why does this scene work? Unless you're living under a rock, you've probably seen Obsession or at least heard of its massive success. There's a lot about the film that's innovative and would be fun to talk about. Today I want to break down one of the most important scenes and two elements that are key to making it work. If you haven't seen the film, here's your spoiler warning. You should go see it in theaters. Okay, so before we talk about Nikki just bashing Sarah's head in, let's back up. In any art form, there are innovators and there are refiners. For example, Bob Kane and Bill Finger created the character of Batman in 1939. That's innovation. And since then, we've had years and years of different iterations, each one refining Batman into the character we know today. Tim Burton leaned into the Gothic. Christopher Nolan leaned into grounding Batman in a believable world. Matt Reeves leaned into the gritty detective aspect of the character, and many more iterations in between, all of them refining. Now let's talk about this in the context of horror as a genre. You can't really talk about innovators without bringing up Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock directed over 50 films, most notably known for films like Psycho, Rear Window, Vertigo, The Birds, and generally pushing the envelope when it comes to horror and suspense. There's an important Hitchcock concept that's key to making the scene in Obsession work. During an AFI master seminar, he said this: 4 people are sitting around a table, talking about baseball, whatever you like. 5 minutes of it, very dull. Suddenly, a bomb goes off, blows the people to smithereens. What does the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table, and it will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different because you've given them that information. Now the conversation about baseball becomes very vital because they're saying to you, don't be ridiculous, stop talking about baseball, there's a bomb under there. So what's the takeaway here? Context. When you tell the audience what to expect, this is the first key to making the scene from Obsession work, as well as a plethora of other horror movies. What Hitchcock says here is fairly obvious when you think about it, but it's important to remember. Establish the threat. What context are you giving the audience? Why should the audience be scared? For example, what if Obsession started with the car scene? The scare might shock people and it would be an interesting cold open to a different type of film, but it certainly wouldn't be as memorable as the dread you feel throughout the whole conversation leading to the scare in the film as it is. In Obsession, Nikki is the bomb under the table. Curry Barker did a great job of establishing this earlier in the film, showing that random, unexpected outbursts of violence can happen at any time. And we know if Bear is caught in a car alone with Sarah, the consequences will be drastic. That's much more than shock value. Let me demonstrate. Here's a shot of a door. Scary stuff, right? Well, what if we add some context? Every night at 3 a.m., something appears in the doorway. You really thought I was about to throw in a jump scare, did you? Oh, my bad. But you get the point. Context. Okay. Key number 2. Real quick before we get to the next point, I just shot my first full-length horror movie, and you can be first in line to see it. You just got to go follow me on Instagram. So, and if you're too impatient for that, you can go check out one of my short films or just go see something else. So, Key number 2, rising action. Obsession reaches heights of intensity that are only possible because of the time it takes to get there. If each scene in the movie featured Nikki bashing somebody's head in or hurting herself, it might be shocking at first, but eventually the audience would become numb to it. This is part of why the slasher genre is really difficult to get right. When you think about it, some of the most horrible things take place in slasher movies, but often at a certain point they become campy and the horror loses its gravity. This is a generalization. I realize there are a lot of great exceptions. But all this to say, if you want a scene like the car scene from Obsession, there needs to be rising action that cues the audience in on what might be possible. but never quite reaching the same heights. So that when you get there, the contrast is intense and visceral, going just a little bit further than you thought was possible. A movie that does this really well is The Invisible Man. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it, because I'm about to spoil it. But basically, after escaping her abusive ex, who's also low-key invisible, she starts experiencing strange things around the house she's staying in. And even though he's supposedly offed himself, she thinks he's tracked her down and is derailing her life on purpose. This is like the ultimate gaslighting movie, because of course, no one believes her talking about an invisible man, but scene after scene, he gets more confident, turning the stove on high, sending emails from her email address, hurting people she loves. All of this is rising action. But the jaw-dropping moment of the movie happens when the protagonist has dinner with her sister. She's about to prove he's still alive, but he takes her steak knife at the table and kills her sister in front of everyone, places the knife back in her hand, and frames her for the crime. For anyone who's seen the movie, that's for sure one of the most memorable sequences, because you just didn't think it would go there. But you're still totally in the moment because the rising action has set up the moment perfectly. There's a lot of things that contribute to making a scene work, and these are just two ideas. But let me know your thoughts below, and maybe go try it yourself.